Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and we are just over a week away from the final episodes of the Netflix Witcher universe, which will feature Henry Cavill in the role of Geralt of Rivia before the mantle of Geralt is passed to Liam Hemsworth for Season 4. Now, a lot of people, whether they be general audience members, book diehards like myself, or normies, have been saying the same universal thing for the most part over the last several years, that Henry Cavill is perfect for the role of Geralt, and that there is no Witcher show without him. A lot of these same people have been saying that they are done with this franchise after he departs the role of Geralt. Those aren't even book fans. They're just people who love Henry Cavill in the role and can't imagine anybody else taking over the mantle. But it's gotten even worse than that, because after the atrocity that is Season 3, Volume 1 came out, people are abandoning the show far earlier than they intended to be. The viewership numbers from episode 1 to episode 5 of season 3 dropped 60%. That is over half the audience that is abandoning this franchise far before the departure of Henry Cavill from the role. We can only speculate how bad the viewership numbers for Volume 2 will be, and even further than that, the viewership numbers for Season 4 without Henry Cavill involved in the franchise at all. But with that speculation has come an additional piece of speculation. How will they do the recast? How will they explain away the change from Henry Cavill to Liam Hemsworth? Now, as I personally would have done, I would have gone the Marvel route where they just kind of do the recast, everybody ignores it, and they move on as if nothing has changed at all. Now, people like As from Heel versus Babyface has theorized that they'll use the final book of The Witcher in Geralt's story's end to explain the recast, where he gets stabbed with the pitchfork and there's some alternate reality pocket dimension stuff, and he'll come back from that with the new face and move on from there. While other people have speculated that in the book that this season is supposedly based on, Time of Contempt, we see Geralt injured very, very heavily before going to the forest of Brocculon to be healed by the Dryads, that perhaps after that engagement in Season 3, if they adapt it, he'll be heavily scarred, heavily injured, and he'll have a new face when he comes out of the healing process. That one is probably the least likely and has possibly been outright contradicted by Netflix, but one of the Netflix producers has come out to clarify some of the inspiration, at least, for the recast and how they're going to do it. And it definitely looks like they're going to go more the Doctor Who route of writing in the recast into the lore and into the story, rather than just moving on as if nothing had happened at all. We have an article here from the Retaining Intelligence that puts together this producer's comments all together at once. Now, about a week ago, he mentioned that this would be a lore accurate recast, that they would be using the lore to do the recast. Now, I was very, very concerned with that initially, because there is no lore accurate explanation for it, and he mentioned inspiration from book 5 with Ciri traveling the multiverse as potential explanation. Now, he didn't use the word multiverse, but I worry that that's where the inspiration for the recast was going to come from, and he's clarified that that does indeed look to be the case for the end of Volume 2. So initially he said it would be lore accurate, then he said Lauren Hisridge and the other writers would be returning for Season 4 before saying, I think they cobbled together a really nice opening, which will be really true to the books. Now, that's an abject lie, because at every single opportunity these writers had, they have mocked and degraded the source material to a degree that I do not believe it will be true to the source material whatsoever. He continues, this story is not a typical fantasy book. It's not just one world. It's not just one story happening in those books, in those stories. It is absolutely one story. Yes, it's more than one world. We don't really see much of the other worlds besides in Ciri's escapades in the final novel, but it is still one story with Geralt and Ciri and Yennefer as the three main characters, specifically Geralt at first before it transitions to be more Ciri's story as the torch passes in a very good way in the books. It is still one story. I don't know what he's talking about. And he continues, it's a huge world, which is very, very complex. I will stop there. We're already getting into multiverse territory right there when he's saying that there are more than one world. And that's going to explain it in a lore accurate manner. Now, for those of you who don't know, yes, there is a multiverse in the Witcher franchise, but it is not a typical multiverse that most viewers are accustomed to. It is not a many world structure of a multiverse as seen in the later phases of Marvel or in The Flash. It's not different timelines with the similar versions of Earth with duplicate characters, doppelgangers, alternate versions of yourselves, variants. There's nothing like that in the Witcher universe. It's more like the multiverse depicted in Doctor Strange 1, where every universe is starkly different. The main universes that we know about are the ancestral home of the Einandude elves, the planet of the unicorns, where Tiernalia is built in the Ein El elves and the Wild Hunt currently reside. There's also at least one, probably more, worlds where monsters come from, and there's also a world where humans come from. Now, when you get into the Witcher video games, specifically The Witcher 3, there are additional worlds stacked on top of that with a lot of variety to them, but they're all unique. They're all very different. It's not many worlds where you're going to find another Ciri, Yennefer, or Geralt out in the multiverse somewhere. If they're going to use the multiverse in this manner, Are we just going to be like, oh, we switched timelines where this is a different universe where seasons 1 through 3 happen the same way that you remember? It's just with Liam Hemsworth in the role instead of Henry Cavill, and we're going to move on in this universe. Is that how they're going to explain it? Because that's going to be trash. That's going to be utter and complete trash. It's not lore accurate whatsoever. Now, this producer, who has a foreign name that I'm unable to pronounce, I apologize for that, went on to say in an interview with the Express, every story can be told from many POVs, and sometimes those POVs and those versions or stories are very, very different from what we thought was the truth. Now, that seems to corroborate with the multiverse idea of we're just switching over to a different perspective universe that had Liam Hemsworth with it the whole time. The writer of this article actually has a different theory that fits in with that evidence, that they will be using some stuff from the later books as well. Some of the later books feature the telling of the Witcher story in historical format. There'll be people in the future who are telling the story of Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer as their own history. That happens with several different characters, several different excerpts, but mainly with the Lady of the Lake and Ciri's adventures in that final book. Is that how they're going to do it? That's what the writer of this article speculates, that there's going to be perhaps a young woman who's been telling the story the whole time who imagines Geralt as Henry Cavill, but suddenly an old man takes over the telling of the story to somebody else and imagine someone looking like Liam Hemsworth in the role of Geralt. That would be a very strange way of going about it, specifically because we haven't had any narrator throughout the story at all. So why would they introduce a narrator only to say, oh, well, this has been the narrator the whole time, but now we're passing it on to this other narrator? It'd be really weird. It's stupid enough to be derived from the Netflix writer's room, but I don't agree with the writer of this article with that theory. Another theory that this writer proposes is that Minnie Driver's character from Witcher Blood Origin will be this narrator fixing the inaccurate telling of the history, with Liam Hemsworth being the correct model, similar to how she corrected Jaskier's inaccurate version of history that he was familiar with, that Blood Origin supposedly corrected. That I can see is way more likely because they've actually introduced Minnie Driver's characters before, and she already has a history of correcting history to telling people the true story of events as seen by Netflix. I hated what they did with her character in Blood Origin, specifically because it mocked the true events from the books and said, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. And then she proceeded to narrate the show in a very terrible manner with terrible, obvious voiceover. Now that I can see as being 100% accurate, but with all these explanations, it's still very multiverse-y. And I'm not okay with that. That is not lore accurate whatsoever. That is not what The Witcher is. So their excuses of lore accuracy will be proved just as false as the comments made by Lauren Hissrich that season 3 would be the most book accurate thus far. This producer is a liar or an idiot and uneducated about The Witcher. People are abandoning this franchise, Netflix. You've lost 60% of your audience from episode 1 to episode 5 of season 3. This franchise is dead and buried and gone. It is beyond salvation. Give up now. Turn in the towel. Give up. It is time to give up before you sink a potential another $1 billion into this sunken ship of a franchise. Netflix, you have wasted your time, you have wasted our time, and destroyed what could have been your flagship property because it was handled by idiots. And this is more proof of that. I cannot wait to see the farce that will be the supposed lore-accurate explanation for the recast from Henry Cavill to Liam Hemsworth leading into season 4. I cannot wait because it'll be some of the biggest stupidity ever come out of the Netflix writer's room, which is quite the feat considering the garbage that they have shoveled out in recent years. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.